So, in the aftermath of the Heather Antucci draft verdict, I've been having some back and forth with Lightworker 34 or whatever, sort of about the TDA things, and she's tipped me off to some interesting guys. And I want to discuss them for her benefit, number one, and number two, because it's actually a very interesting sort of mess that's going on here. The first video I'm going to play is Jonah Bay and apparently some other guys discussing sort of TDA accounts and related free money scams. So we're going to start with Jonah Bay and work our way backwards.
Right? And he went to war and took over all the land mass that was given to him, and that's the new covenant, which was called the Sharia, right? Now, the Sharia had bankers or trustees of their bank. That was called the Vatican. Now, the Vatican noticed that we were fighting each other and plus trying to push back the Tamahus. And we learned this story through Dr. York when he was talking about one of his ancestors called the Mahdi. That's all that was set up, was to keep the Tamahus out of the interior of Africa. Right? This is all a part of the Punic Wars, right? Now, so that was the trust that was set up. Now, they called it blackmail when they had to pay into this trust. Now, why was the trust set up? Is because they were the owners of the land, the Moors, right? Anytime the trust is set up, that person claims all the land mass on the planet.
Now, if you don't follow the channel regularly, you don't know who Dr. York is. But the Dr. York that they're referring to is, of course, Malachi Z. York, or Dwight York, which is the leader of the Nuwaubian cult, which is a sort of black supremacist, black nationalist cult. Dr. York is currently in federal prison, serving 135 years for child rape. So here we have Jonah Bay, the successor of a convicted serial child rapist. So let's keep that in mind moving on, because it's gonna tie into other stuff. The other influence of Jonah Bay is, well, according to what I've been able to find, is Pastor Tony King. So let's listen to him.
See, like, y'all giving me too much information. Gene gave me 12 years of books to read. Okay. Next question.
Pastor Tony.
Yes.
Regarding the interest-bearing and non-interest-bearing accounts. Just say hypothetically, I didn't do this myself. But
okay. It was just a friend. I know.
Yeah, friend.
All right, now that's from a 2-hour seminar given by Tony King. And if you're curious, the cost of attending one of those seminars is $450. But what's interesting is that he mentions that he got his information from Gene. So I wondered, could he mean Gene Keating? Turns out that's exactly who Tony King got his information from, Gene Keating. And there's seminars and conferences in which Gene Keating and Tony King were working together. Now let's keep in mind here, Tony King is a pastor, Gene Keating is just some crazy guy. Neither of them are attorneys, neither of them have any legal training or experience dealing with foreclosures or training that would allow them to provide actual legal. Now, remember that the topic of the seminar with Gene Keating was mortgage foreclosures. Now, the ironic part about that is that Gene Keating has a losing record dealing with mortgage foreclosures. The only thing that shows up when you look up when I looked for Gene Keating court records online is a case from 2010. Quote, the people of California, Gene Keating, blah, 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 v. Bank of America, Countrywide Home Loans, blah, blah. This is a lawsuit filed by Gene Keating trying to avoid a foreclosure. as this is the final judgment. And as you can see, Gene Keating lost his case disastrously. Let's read it here. Quote, "This court, having entered its July 13th, 2010 order denying plaintiff Gene Keating's motion for reconsideration and granting defendants' motions for attorney's fees, hereby enters judgment in accordance with that order as follows. 1. The plaintiffs shall recover nothing," the plaintiffs being Gene Keating. "This action is dismissed on the merits." And 2, defendants shall recover their cost of this action from plaintiff Gene Keating, including attorney's fees, in the sum of $73,187.30, dated September 16th, 2010, and we got the judge's signature, blah, blah, blah. Gene Keating has 0 wins on records when dealing with foreclosures, but he passes himself off as an expert in foreclosures and the law in general. So Tony King, the teacher of Tony King, is a fraud. So Tony King is simply regurgitating bullshit to a new audience. Okay, so going back to the secured party creditor seminar, which, by the way, again, cost $450 to attend. So assuming, let's say, 50 people show up to the seminar, they're pulling in $22,500 per seminar. Let's assume that they pay $2,000 or whatever in renting wherever they're having a seminar, and maybe food and snacks. They're pulling in 20 grand per seminar. There is a gigantic financial motive to promote this bullshit to people that don't know any better, people that are desperate and dealing with foreclosures and stuff. You can make a lot of money promoting nonsense via the internet, via seminars. Now, why is it ironic that Jonah Bay and Tony King are promoting the secured party process? This is an article from fall 2016 from the Oxford American discussing Dwight York and the Nuwabians and the cult. It's a very good read, but here is the pertinent link part of this article. Quote, "York and his followers argued that he was a Liberian diplomat and had immunity, while at other points he claimed he was a Yamasee Indian and must be tried by his own people. After withdrawing an earlier guilty plea, York warned the court that he was a secured party and that anyone speaking his name, which he maintained he had trademark, would be fined." So, why is it ironic that Jonah Bay is promoting the secured party creditor process? Because the guy he learned from, Dwight York, who is currently in prison for 135 years, tried the secured party process in his own child molestation case, and it did not work. It has never worked. Now, there are hundreds of cases of people attempting the secured party process and failing in court. Again, it has never worked in court, but in the United States v. Hudson, which is from 2018, which is a pretty recent case, the court actually gives a pretty good overview of how the secured party process works. This Mr. Hudson was charged with 5 counts of making false claims against the United States, false financial instruments, and 3 counts of bank fraud. Looking back at Randy K. Bean and Heather and Two-Shear Giraffe, it's the same type of criminal charges that these guys tend to get into. Quote, "Mr. Hudson was a member of the Colorado Free State Republic. That entity is affiliated with a national entity called the Republic for the United States of America." We'll go back to who the Republic for the United States of America is, because it also ties into this. But anyways, more generally, Mr. Hudson describes himself as a sovereign citizen. As a sovereign citizen and member of the aforementioned groups, Mr. Hudson believes that all persons are sovereign citizens observe certain rituals Where we go. Mr. Hudson's testimony and argument focuses on the ritual entitled redemption. He explains that at the time of each citizen's birth, the government pledges the lifetime earning capacity of each citizen to foreign investors and simultaneously creates a bank account that holds cash collateral for this pledge. This is the common thing that all these guys are teaching, that there's a secret bank account. Anyways, later at trial, Mr. Hudson referred to this account as his birth certificate fund, and the court will adopt this label for purposes of this opinion. Normally, the birth certificate fund is only made available to an artificial government strawman that bears the same name as citizen. To obtain access to the birth certificate fund, the citizen must redeem the money by disclaiming or extinguishing the essence of a strawman. The redemption ritual is performed by a citizen mailing certain forms and documents. Mr. Hudson testified that he turned in his social security card and his birth certificate and a blank check drawn on the citizen's closed personal checking account. This is one of the things that a lot of these guys like to teach to various government entities. The mailing appears to complete the ritual, as Mr. Hudson testified that he expected no response from the government. Mr. Hudson testified that a person could access the website of Fidelity Investment to run the QSIP number on your birth certificate. Strawman identity is associated with the identification cards in capital letters. Anyway, here we go. Mr. Hudson explained that once redemption was completed, the citizen acquired the status of secured party creditor. A secured party creditor could then draw upon the birth certificate fund by issuing checks typically drawn on the citizen's closed personal checking account with routing number and account numbers altered by hand. The secured party creditor writes in the routing number of the Federal Reserve Bank branch where the citizen was born and replaces the printed account number with his social security number. Mr. Hudson explained that the various checks and claims would thereafter be paid by the government from funds in the citizen's birth certificate account. As Mr. Hudson explained, the paperwork that was sent in was supposed to open up the account at the Treasury, and every EFT was sent in. Blah, blah. Mr. Hudson testified that he completed the redemption ritual and became a secure party in September or October 2011. And just to clarify, that is not, the court is not saying that what he's saying is right. He's saying that that is what he believed, and based on those beliefs, Hudson wrote false checks to various entities, which again, going back to Heather Antucci Giraffe and Randy Bean, which is the most recent case of this, because they believe they have secret accounts and they write checks on those secret accounts, because those accounts do not exist, all those checks that they write are false checks, and it is considered, quote unquote, bank fraud. It's considered false financial instruments. It's considered making false claims against the United States. These are very serious felonies. So Tony King and Jonah Bay and Heather Antucci Giraffe and who else? Harvey Dent are all telling people to do things that are considered felonies in our current judicial system. Anyways, in the Hudson case, Hudson mentions that he learned this stuff from the Republic for the United States. Now, the Republic for the United States was basically a fake government created by, well, not created by, but he was basically like a man in charge, James Timothy Turner. And in this article, well, it's a press release from July 2013, he was convicted of tax fraud in 2013, and he's serving 18 years in jail. So again, not a good idea to be repeating stuff that you get from convicted criminals. But what's interesting about this is, going back into the sort of the mess that is this story. Tim Turner influenced Heather Antucci Giraffe. I've talked about that in other videos. But what's interesting here is that Tim Turner was also a promoter of the secure party creditor nonsense. So Even though Tony King and Jonah Bay may not mention Tim Turner specifically, Tim Turner was one of the big promoters of this scam in the early 2000s. But I've also talked about Tim Turner in the case and his role in the case of Ron Van Dyke, who was also a senior citizen, sovereign citizen, also out of Florida, that got scammed by Tim Turner, lost his home, blah, blah. Anyways, the question you may be asking is, how does Tony King and Jonah Bay fall for a scam which at one point was almost entirely made up of white people and white supremacists and racist white people? The answer to that can be partially found in this article from 1997 named Soul Food and Crackers, quote unquote. Let's see here. Bacchus and about a half dozen other passengers returned east, blah, blah. From there, several associates continued on to Puerto Rico, where so-called warrants, which looked like cashier's check with face values totaling $1.7 billion, were to be deposited in a branch of a major Spanish bank in a suburb of San Juan. Beginning in April 1996, Bacchus and 4 friends, 3 black men and a Latino, joined forces with the Republic of Texas, a separatist group that claims Texas is a sovereign nation and they are its legitimate government. Within months, these 5 Dallas area men were moving in the Republic's top ranks, huddling with de facto leader Richard McLaren. McLaren was sentenced to 99 years in prison in 1997, but he was later acquitted. But still, not a good sign there. Moving on. When I first heard they were blah blah. How these strange fellows slipped between the sheets, how Republic of Texas went on to join forces with an oddball black separatist group in Louisiana called the Washita Empress, and how Creer and company began living large on private jets and plastic money, buying more than $150,000 worth of computers, clothes, and gun, are part of a to date unexplored chapter in the history of the Republic of Texas. It's a story whose general outlines are clear, although some outlines will become more clear when it goes to trial for blah blah. Creer and Bacchus have forsworn lawyers. Their use of the warrants and participation in smuggling trip to Puerto Rico. How these strange bedfellows slipped between the sheets. How the Republic of Texas went on to join forces with an oddball black separatist group in Louisiana called the Washita Empire. Is part of an unexplored chapter in the history of the Republic of Texas. Blah blah. So why is this relevant? Because Dwight York was introduced to sovereign citizen theories from the Empress of the Washita. So how this works is, all right, so let's try and connect the dots here just to clarify how this works. The Republic of Texas is sort of where this starts, because these sovereign citizen theories start with white guys and sort of white races. The Republic of Texas teaches their stuff to the Empress of the Washita. The Washita Empress then teaches these theories to Dwight York. Dwight York then teaches Jonah Bay and Tony King, partially. It looks like Jonah Bay also taught Tony King. So, fruit of the poison tree. Bullshit is invented by Republic of Texas. Bullshit is taught to the Washita Empress. Bullshit is taught to Dwight York. Goes to jail. That bullshit passes on to Jonah Bay and Tony King, who are currently charging $450 per seminar to teach bullshit invented decades ago by the Republic of Texas. Anyways, the Republic of Texas also influences Tim Turner Gene Keating kind of definitely got stuff from Republic Texas, but also other groups. Tim Turner teaches Heather and Tushy Giraffe. Gene Keating then goes on to work with Jonah Bay and Tony King. So, and now Heather and Tushy Giraffe is teaching, let's say, Lightworker 34, who is now, from her perspective, the fact that Jonah Bay and Tony King are saying the same things that Heather and Tushy Giraffe are saying is proof that there is some validity to these teachings. But because Tony King and Heather and Tushy Giraffe both, where all this chain begins is Republic Texas and sovereign citizen redemption theory. The root, the primordial, whatever you want to call it, because it starts with bullshit. Everything that happens beyond that point is also bullshit. Yeah, so basically we're stuck in the those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Yeah, Republic Texas goes to jail, tries the stuff and goes to jail. So let's put a little X where there's jail. Tim Turner tries this, goes to jail. Gene Keating tries this, ends up owing $75,000 in court costs. Heather and Tushy tries this, is facing 10 years in jail. Washita Empress, she's dead, but a couple of people in her organization went to jail. She also, the Washita group also inspired a cop killer who's currently dead. Dwight York tries this, goes to jail for 135 years. A bunch of his followers are also in jail. He also raped a bunch of kids. Those kids are traumatized for life. It's a giant mess. Right now, Jonah Bay and Tony King have not been busted, and chances are they might not be busted because, there's not. The feds don't give this as much attention as they should. I mean, Jonah Bay should be in jail right now, but he's under a radar. Let's put a question mark on these guys. So, here's the danger. As Boy Gillet wrote in a recent comment here. You just can't help being a douchebag. It's like in your blood or something. Your fucking life is so pathetic that you have to go around on the internet and make fun of other people's lives so you can make your own life seem better than the pile of fucking shit that it probably is. Hey, no, that's not what this is about. This is not about making fun of people. It's recognizing that how many people are we talking about? Between the Republic of Texas, the Washita Empress, Dwight York, Gene Keating, Tim Turner, we're probably looking at hundreds or thousands of people who have been harmed by this nonsense, gone to jail because of this nonsense, ended up dead because of the nonsense. And now, at the end of almost 30 years of nonsense, Lightworker 34, who seems like a nice person, has kids, her brother's in jail for reasons she won't mention, she is risking her life and liberty, trying theories that go back, that have a 30-year record of failing. And if she goes to jail, it sounds like she's a single mother. What happens to the kids? They'll have to go with some other family member, foster care or something. So, look, this is not about making fun of people on the internet, but maybe a little bit. But no, the point here is trying to prevent people like Lightworker 34 from ending up in jail, losing their kids, losing their homes, losing their money, losing $450 to a fake seminar that's going to teach them bullshit. It can't be said enough. The stuff that these people are teaching on YouTube and on these online seminars doesn't work. It has never worked. The people who invented it couldn't make it work. The people who they taught it to couldn't make it work. The people who tried it the third time around couldn't make it work. The fourth time around couldn't make it work. Tim Turner couldn't make it work. Heather and Tushy Giraffe couldn't make it work. It doesn't work. And there's case law proving that. So please, something has to be done to stop the cycle of people trying stuff, going to jail, more people selling it. And I have to put, the blame here on, I guess, law enforcement in general, because the feds are not doing enough to put an end to these scams. YouTube isn't doing enough to shut down the channels that promote this stuff. Jonah Bay and Tony Kane have been promoting criminal and fraudulent schemes for years online. They've not been arrested yet. And you have to wonder, is the reason Jonah Bay and Tony Kane are allowed to promote these fraudulent schemes online the fact that they're selling it to poor and communities of color? This is a part of a strategy of neglect. Personally, I think that's what's going on. I think the authorities simply don't care when it's black people and Hispanics that are being scammed. There's less interest when it's poor people that are being defrauded, but I can't prove that, obviously. But that is what my theory would be here. So please, people, do your homework, look these things up, check if it has ever worked in court. You'll time and time again, you'll find that this has never worked in court. People are going to continue to promote these theories online because, let's face it, if you can make $450 off this bullshit, you're gonna lie and claim that it does work just so you can make money. You got to do your own research. You can't believe everything you find on the internet.